This is the strange and traumatic story of a young model and brand ambassador, 33-year-old Mercedes Morr. What does it mean to be successful? The textbook definition says that it means having achieved popularity, profit, or distinction. And if success is measured by one or all of those things, then you could say that Mercedes Morr was the living embodiment of the very word. Born in El Paso, Texas, she came into the world as Janae Gagnier, a name that many of her fans and even friends had never heard of. That's because her large social media presence garnered millions of followers and fans under the stage name Mercedes Morr. With over 2.6 million followers on Instagram, her charisma and hard work as an Instagram model was enough to grab the attention of well-known influencers and celebrities from all over who followed her burgeoning career through social media. Some of her celebrity contacts included popular entertainers like Drake, Cardi B, Travis Scott, Bow Wow, and Offset. Her popularity on the social media scene was growing to new heights, allowing her to use her social status as a means to financially maintain and support her lifestyle. But oftentimes, when we seek out and reach for star status in the eyes of the media, we overlook everything that comes with it, including the many dangers associated with being in the spotlight. In the days leading up to what would become a grisly and shocking display of obsession and cold-blooded murder, many of Mercedes' friends and family described her attitude as excited and upbeat. Unfortunately, she had no way of knowing that her every move was being stalked, and that one of her social media followers would act on his deranged fantasies in person. As the weekend of August 29, 2021 came, Mercedes' father took notice that he hadn't heard from his daughter over the course of several days, and neither had any of her friends or other family members. To say that this was unusual was an understatement. So her father decided to investigate for himself. So on Sunday, August 29th, Mark Gagnier made his way to his daughter's Cortland apartment located at 5200 Point West Circle. The following is a statement Morr's father made to ABC News. "I know my daughter, and when I got to my daughter's house and it was locked up and she's not answering my phone call, it's not like her. I knew something was up, so I didn't hesitate to kick the door down. And what I saw, I wouldn't want any parent to go through." Mark Gagnier kicked down the front door to his daughter's home and upon entry, found her lifeless body lying in a fetal position near the bottom of a staircase with her clothing torn and tattered. This initially led him to believe that she had an accident and had possibly fallen down the stairs. But when he went upstairs, the reality of the horrors that had taken place inside of his daughter's home raised even more questions as he stumbled across the body of 34-year-old Kevin Alexander Acorto, who was lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood, with a knife embedded in his neck. He told authorities that he could see him twitching and heard gurgling sounds coming from his throat. He was still alive. Barely. Along with the carnage and puzzling display of bodies in the home were random notes and messages scribbled on the wall written in red lipstick, including confessions, apologies, and professed love for Janae. Some of the messages read, "I wish I never loved her. I was used for money, and I should have stayed in Florida." After the authorities were alerted and made their way to the scene, an official investigation into Janae's murder was launched as a forensics team processed the apartment. However, it's what they didn't find that would come as a surprise. Expecting to find some sign of forced entry or perhaps a broken window, they found nothing. Yet the killer was right there in the midst of Janae's home and had obviously spent some time inside after her death. So how then did he gain access to the inside? The mystery surrounding Janae's death sent various media outlets and conspiracy theorists everywhere into a frenzy. Although it was believed that she never knew or had any contact with Kevin Acorto, several unsubstantiated claims and stories began to surface about Janae's killer actually being her sugar daddy. Other wild claims said that she was set up in a robbery attempt, and that she died from HIV following a botched surgery. Again, all of these were misleading attempts to tell a story that didn't exist. Janae's father told authorities that he and his wife had grown concerned about her safety more and more as she began changing her appearance to appeal to her massive following by modeling revealing clothing like bathing suits and lingerie. He said that he spoke to Mercedes about her crazy followers and how many of them may have liked or loved her, but also about the dangers of those that might be infatuated or obsessed. And it seems that his fears in the end were an ominous foreshadowing of things to come. While it is believed that the only connection shared between Janae and her killer was social media, investigators do not believe there was ever any kind of relationship or verbal exchange between the two, which makes this case all the more disturbing. Despite the investigation into social media accounts and background of Kevin Ocorto, they still don't know how he was able to travel from Florida, his last known place of address, to track Janae down and find out exactly where she lived and what apartment unit she was in. There are so many questions that have followed this case, as many of her followers have begun to form their own opinions and conclusions as to what happened and how. The official autopsy report from the coroner's office stated that her death was due to strangulation and traumatic concussion. It is unclear if her killer was one of the many followers she obtained through social media. Also unclear is how he gained access to the residence, considering she lived in a gated apartment complex that had 3 possible entry points, including the front door, back door, and garage. But as aforementioned, none of those entry points showed evidence of forced entry or tampering. As for the killer himself, police made every attempt to track his movements to understand how he got to Texas. They did not release any information on whether they found a car, plane tickets, or rental history, so this also remains a major mystery in this case. There were no active restraining orders on Kevin Ocorto, and authorities say that he did not have a criminal past. It's been nearly 2 years since the death of Janae Gagnier, and the same questions that were being asked back then are still left to be pondered by many of her fans today. If there has been any new information found, it has not been released to the public, making this case one of the biggest murder mysteries in recent years, and a reminder to those that seek to live in the limelight. Be careful of the fame and social status that you seek, and even more careful of the possible dangers that come with it.